Patrick DeHaan is here with us once again from Gas Buddy. Patrick, good to see you again. I hope this week has started out all right for you.
Well, I mean, all right for me, certainly not for the gas pump, but that's been 9 weeks now that we've been talking about this. So,
Yeah, and here we go again, right? Is that we had sort of another spike after the UAE said it came under attack from Iran, and President Trump has said that there are new efforts to safely guide vessels through the Strait of Hormuz, or certain vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. So you get this turbulence, and once again we see a jump. How significant was the jump that we saw today?
well, I mean, they're all really adding up. I mean, the price of oil is up about 3.5% today. So, in the grand scheme of things, we've seen bigger increases in the price of oil, but we're starting to stack up now. The national average is at 4.45 a gallon. That's the highest since July of 2022, and really, there's no signs of it slowing down. The U.S. and Iran are both escalating still. Iran attacking other countries. So this isn't going to be the end until there's some sort of concrete agreement, and until we see ships actually going through the Strait of Hormuz, we're going to continue to see gasoline, oil, diesel, jet fuel, everything is going to continue going up. So 9 weeks in, I probably would not have thought we'd be here, but here we are. And who knows? Maybe it could be another 9 weeks. Let's hope not. My so-called beauty sleep is there's not been much of that lately. So, but every American is seeing it at the pump. It's getting harder to digest. Americans now collectively spent over $23 billion more on gasoline from March 1st. That's a pretty significant economic cost.
Can you restate that one more time? $23 billion more spent on gasoline by Americans, you said, since March 1st?
$23.9 billion dollars. That's $2,462 every second. That's about $23.3 million dollars every hour that Americans are spending more on gasoline. And that's just gasoline. I mean, look at airlines and jet fuel. In fact, over the weekend, we had an airline that probably wasn't the most financially sound, but the price of jet fuel, I mean, airlines are selling you a ticket today for use 6 to 11 months down the road, even some cases a year down the road. And suddenly, that is a way that Americans can hedge, right? If you buy a ticket at lower prices for travel 11 months, I mean, that's where Spirit Airlines got upside down, is jet fuel prices for tickets sold months ago are no longer feasible to operate an airline with jet fuel prices that are approaching $4 or $5 a gallon.
And when we look at Spirit Airlines, and I'll get Spirit Airlines is officially closing. That is news that came through over the weekend. And I know that there has been plenty of reporting that this is directly linked to the fuel price spike. I mean, obviously, you see other airlines that are able to still survive. And so Spirit certainly could have done things to keep themselves in position for a crisis like this. But is it fair to say that without this issue, Spirit Airlines would still be business as usual here at this point in time?
Well, it certainly wouldn't have been such an abrupt jump in fuel costs. Look, fuel costs are probably the second largest cost an airline faces, potentially behind the cost of labor and the cost of assets, the cost of flying, and the plane price itself. If not, it might be a third most expensive item for an airline. So, not to say that I would know if Spirit could, would be operational, but if your second or third largest item of what your financials look like suddenly doubles in price, that's going to be hard for an airline that's not in a good financial position. So, I mean, look at it this way. I mean, the airline had already been hoping for a merger years ago, right? It was not in the most financially sound environment. I mean, look, Spirit was a low cost carrier. When you're a low cost anything, and when prices suddenly go from low to high, that's going to put you in danger. And that's what happened with Spirit. So, their balance sheet wasn't as perfect as it could have been, and jet fuel prices are something that are hard to manage. You don't get any guarantee, and hedging and pre-buying fuel at prices down the road is very expensive, and so it's part of the reason why Spirit went down. Other airlines probably are going to struggle with fuel costs as well, and that's why airfares and other expenses like bag fees are going to continue to likely face upward pressure.
And just to add some more context to what Patrick DeHaan has been saying here, this is, you speak about that merger. The Department of Justice under President Joe Biden blocked JetBlue from buying Spirit for $3.8 billion. So obviously they were looking for some sort of change already, but it is also true, according to Axios.com, that jet fuel prices were essentially the straw that broke Spirit's back. And Axios has also written, to your point, about how several European airlines may be at risk for the same reason. Now, they do include, as you said as well, that Spirit didn't sufficiently hedge its jet fuel costs, which speaks to poor management or maybe to being over leveraged. This is Spirit's second bankruptcy in less than a year, but that reporting and speaking to you gives us very little doubt that this was a major contributor to Spirit closing up shop, and that's 17,000 lost jobs, not to mention all of the flights that are now gone from the itinerary where people are scrambling to find other options. Okay, so, we are really, truly feeling the impacts of this. We've talked about fertilizer quite a bit. We obviously have talked about airlines quite a bit, just people's wallets when it comes to that $23+ billion that have been spent by Americans, more since March 1st. Is there any other industry that you want to highlight that we've maybe seen come under great stress here, even more so in the past week since we last talked to you?
Well, airlines don't really have a great way of assessing the jet fuel premium, but you look at companies like UPS and FedEx, they've already had mechanisms for years, right? That jet fuel surcharges are a line item expense now. Fuel surcharges, the thing that Americans hate to see, kind of like those restaurant surcharges that we've all seen sporadically that still have a life after COVID, right? The nickel and diming. But those bottom line expenses help companies stay open. But yeah, I mean, you look at companies like UPS, if you ship via air, I think there's probably something like a 30% surcharge now because this is the cost that can't be absorbed. It's so monumental. Airlines like UPS, which UPS is one of the largest airlines in the world already, they just don't haul passengers. So companies like this have tremendous exposure. And the next thing you buy from whether it be the internet or somewhere else, diesel or jet fuel is what powers those goods to get to your home. And gasoline is the thing we look at most that's most impacted. But there's going to be a lot of inflation returning to things like the grocery store, the home improvement store. Everything like that is going to see an impact here, plus our wallet on filling our tank up. So the longer the Strait of Hormuz continues to be closed, the longer we're going to be paying those higher expenses. You mentioned fertilizer. Farmers are just starting to get into their fields to plant their crops. It's going to be an expensive year for food.
And when it comes to this situation and how it gets increasingly dire, is there a pull lever in case of emergency option here? Is there anything that United States government is holding off on at all costs, but that is there any sort of solution that would be a drastic step, but that could be taken if this were to, as you said, hopefully not continue for another 9 weeks or more?
I think the government has taken all of the very small levers and pulled them completely in the opposite direction. But the thing is, none of those levers really have nearly the level of impact that the Strait does. There's been an E15 waiver, a Jones Act waiver, a summer gasoline waiver, and the price behind me just doesn't stop going up. So even the SPR is being released at the rate of 1 million barrels a day. It too, not much impact. So the government can try new things till it's blue in the face, but none of it is really going to work in the way that reopening the strait would work.
I'm wondering, with your line of work, especially anecdotally within your life, I mean, hey, do you have friends and family members who are kind of coming to you in a state of panic? Is that something that you're experiencing?
Well, a lot of the time when I'm trying to enjoy myself on the weekend or, go out with family and spend time with them, the conversation does switch to how bad it's going to get. And I remind them that I'm not on the clock and I get enough of talking during the day. So, yeah, I mean, there's generally a lot of worry. And in the few seconds I have left with you, I mean, it could get worse. And unfortunately, in my role right now, there's not a whole lot of insurance or good things that I can say because right now there's not a lot of good happening. I mean, this happened us talking on the same day that Iran is launching new attacks on the UAE. It could get worse before it gets better, but we've lived through everything. We're humans, we're resilient. So at the end of the day, it may get worse, but we'll live another day.
We will live another day, and we will see you another day as well. We appreciate your time as always. We can promise that if we ever get to hang out outside of live impact news, we won't bring it up. We'll talk about other stuff.
There we go. Perfect. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Patrick DeHaan, helpful as always in parsing through a situation that, as he said, continues to be a major concern and could continue to get worse. We already gave you the update about today's news regarding Iran attacking the UAE and President Trump's new assertion of safety in the Strait of Hormuz via sort of helping vessels get through. And we have reports from the administration that two American flagged vessels, or American stamped vessels, if you will, have indeed passed through. Let me go through this one more time. The U.S. reported that two American flagged merchant ships had successfully transited the waterway as part of the new safeguarding initiative. Shortly after, the U.S. military said it battled Iranian forces and sank 6 small boats. So the Strait of Hormuz remains in a state of great crisis and conflict, and the effects of that are being felt throughout the global economy, including by every single person who needs to go to the gas pump in Hampton Roads, North Carolina, or elsewhere.